This video got a ton of hate. A few years ago, Sean and I put out a video on Instagram, and this video was highlighting a man or several men going through a cathartic release at one of our retreats. As a part of what we do in the men's circles in the brotherhood is be able to get men to the point where they are releasing, clearing, purifying their bodies, their minds, their spirits, their hearts from all of the weight, all of the responsibility, all of the patterns, the trauma, the wounding that has been deeply imprinted within their cellular memory, within their nervous system. And this specific video, which you'll see on the screen, got a ton of hate. And at first, it was a big shock to both Sean and I in the sense that, it was like, we work in this realm, we work in this bubble, and seeing all of these good men, these conscious men begin to come through and want to do this work, but then see the contrast of it and to see all of these other men that are just projecting hate and judgment and criticism on it. And, fortunately, we're both at a point where we're confident and convicted in the work that we're doing. But it was just really a surprise that there's still so much unconsciousness as it pertains to this work, to men healing amongst other men. And this can be a shock to some people where they've been so much living in this place of survival, in this place of trauma for so long that it creates this skewed perception. And of course, then you pile on the programming and conditioning, the indoctrination of what true masculinity is. You see something like this that goes against the grain, it creates probably a whole lot of feelings. And in this case, a whole lot of anger being projected at us. And so this video today, this conversation is really an opportunity to not only set things straight, but to really go deep into the psychology, into the psyche, into the shadow of what's actually happening with these men that have this visceral, frustrating, rageful reaction towards seeing things like this, especially men coming together in this way to heal, to grow, and to rise. And so let's open the floodgates, brother.
Yeah, we're really here to just bring some understanding, because I get it. You see some of these things on the internet. You see a guy that's doing like a primal scream without any context or story about what's actually going on. And so, yeah, it can look a certain way. And we're here today because we've been in this for so long. Like Chris said, we didn't really have a great gauge on like what the outside kind of world was seeing, the lens that they were seeing through. So, our intention today is to have this conversation to the men out there who might find this in whatever way. And the ask is just to have at least some level of curiosity and openness, right? Like if you're struggling, if you're dealing with extreme amounts of shame and self-hatred, and you're just internalizing it all, and you're not, your family doesn't know about it, you're just trying to figure it out, and you're just trying to push through, you've got a complete identity crisis going on within you, and you don't want anybody to see you in that place because it's so painful. Guess what? We've both gone through that many, many times over many years. And so we get it. And so the point of this is to really hit home. We're not that different, right? Like, even though we've been on this quote unquote healing path for a while, I'm reading through these comments and I'm in my heart and I'm like, man, I'm actually, like one guy said, these men need to swing a hammer, they need to pour some concrete, take a nap in their truck and work for 20 hours. And my first thought was like, dude, I just did that a couple weeks ago. Like I was working a labor job helping a friend out with a project locally. And so we do all these things too. Like we enjoy sports, we like the physical activities, we like fishing, all this stuff. But when it comes to what's really going on inside and the depth of the subconscious and the body that's holding these traumas and these vast amounts of shame, talk therapy is not going to do it. Nothing is going to do it like getting together with other men, doing the breath work, creating the space, feeling the emotions that need to be felt. And we know this. It's like it's a science, you know? It's like we have the experience and the evidence to back it up because we've done it so many times. And so all we really want to do is get this out there and help, you know, dispel any of the judgments or any of the resistance or hesitation that guys would feel when they see this kind of a thing. And maybe part of them's like, oh, that maybe that could be good for me, but like, oh, look what all these other people are saying. Like, I don't know, that seems kind of weird. Some form of judgment. So we're here to just get into all of this because that video went super viral. It was like 15 million plus views across different platforms, and that wasn't an accident. That was like very upfront and center, a massive shadow that was revealing itself. And so I think it was like, all right, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, and again, there's no mistake to it all, and it's actually I feel quite honored to be in the space where we can put this on display and also be able to really dissect this because I'm not really offended by any means because I again know Sean knows the work we do and how powerful it is for the men that come into these spaces. Like I'm fully on board with everything, but it's really important to sort of highlight the overall mainstream narrative. And so I'm going to read a few comments here just because we'll bring some true context to this, and it would take days and days to go through all the comments. But here's one. I would rather die old and grumpy and alone sitting on my front porch with all that trauma, anger, and disappointment firmly bottled up, as it is the way of the superior man. Wow. That's a big one.
Yeah.
You'd rather die sitting alone on your front porch with all that trauma bottled up within you. That really goes to show where someone's at consciously or unconsciously, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
If this is opposite of toxic masculinity, I'm 100% on board with toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, there's so much here. And again, I can keep going. Here's another one. Man, knowing the hate and bottled up stress in my chest is definitely giving me cancer. I'm okay with the cancer. Wow.
Yeah.
This is deep.
It's deep, and they might be presenting it somewhat like a joke. Like some people might hear that and say, "Oh, they're messing around, or they're just trying to roast you guys, or whatever." But it's like, no, there's something here. There's so many comments like this that this is just a pattern that's an overarching pattern that's revealing itself.
It is. And we'll just read a few more and then we'll go through this. But men literally doing anything except therapy, right? So there's this narrative, right, that we as men, again, we need to express through physicality. I agree. Sean agrees with that. Very important. Sports, martial arts, pouring concrete, whatever you want to call it. Some level of physicality is great. It's important, but it doesn't stop at physicality. Actually, physicality is very much it's the lowest realm. It's the material realm. Where are we actually looking into not just the mental, but the emotional and the spiritual realm? And this is what therapy or talk therapy doesn't cover, because we've had several guys that have been in talk therapy for years, but they're looping in the same narratives and the same stories internally, and they're not actually getting anywhere because you can vent and talk all you want, but unless you move the energy out of the body, out of the somatic vessel, then none of that is actually going to matter. And so what do we have here with all of just a few of these comments that we've read? We have very hurt, wounded, traumatized men that don't know any other way of any level of expression other than spewing hate and judgment and criticism. Because if we were to peel the layers back deep enough, if one of these men were to actually come into one of these spaces and we were to get to the core, there is most likely going to be a very scared, hurt little boy, an inner child that didn't get the attention, love, and acceptance that he needed. And therefore, is projecting all of what he has bottled up and suppressed and repressed from all of these years onto anything on the outside. So it's all victimization and blame due to his own inherent sense of unworthiness and that he's not good enough and unlovable. That's what you would find at the core. But there's many layers to fully get there. And that's where breaking open the shell, that there's this deep protective layer that so many men carry around. And all that's doing really is hurting themselves. It's actually killing them slowly from the inside out. Rather than embracing their vulnerability, authenticity, and transparency, and facing the shadows and the demons that they've essentially been living with for all this time within themselves.
Yeah. I think there's this idea around men's work and men's retreats that it's kind of just guys getting around a fire and sharing their feelings and telling stories and things like that. And like, that's definitely part of it. But I think one of the things people don't see is we're engaging in the exercises, we're doing the experiential stuff that's bringing up this unconscious shame, right? It's like, this is so psychological in so many ways, right? Like the best psychologist in the world, considered one of the best in the world, Carl Jung, and we talk about this a lot, shadow work. It's like these things are so unconscious and they're running our lives that if we don't bring them to the forefront, we'll go to our deathbeds with them. If we don't address these protector archetypes within us that we developed as children, we're going to stay the same. And then we're going to deal with pain in the same way. We're going to stay in that place of coping. And it's like, if men could expand the view to a broad perspective, which I know is hard to do because there's a ton of shit going on. People got families, people got responsibilities. Like, I know there's a lot of weight to that. And I really understand that. And at the same time, you know, we're part of the world. We're all in this thing together. And it's like, there is a lot of terrible shit happening. And there's things that guys don't realize because they're in their little bubble with their own shit and their own families and dealing with their own stuff. But there are so many suicides going on for men. There are so many vast amounts of clinical depression, families breaking apart, addiction just destroying communities. These are things that are happening. And if we don't talk about this stuff and bring it into the light and take responsibility as men in this generation, then it's going to lead us into a really dark place. And I know it's so easy to just do your day-to-day stuff and be disconnected from all of that. But just like a disease in your body, and you're ignoring the symptoms, eventually it's going to get to the point where you can't ignore it anymore, and the full-blown health crisis is going to hit you. And you're going to have to face a life or death scenario. You're going to have to choose a complete change of lifestyle to deal with it. And what we're saying here is why we even do this men's stuff is because we received so much from it, and we learned that much deeper layers of ourselves and life and who we are beyond the identity that was formed as a child to protect and to get love and to be accepted. 95, maybe more % of men are still operating from that exact identity. Their belief of themselves is the same. The way they see the world is the same. And until you get curious enough and open enough to just ask the big questions of like, who am I really? What's actually going on here? What are my core beliefs about the world and myself? What are my actual values? What's beyond just my normal routine that I've been in? Without those questions, everything stays the same, and guys just learn to deal with that very deep dissatisfaction about their lives and themselves within them. And that's where the alcohol comes in. That's where the cannabis or whatever they use to get away from that. Abuse, like treating their family like shit. These are the things that are so important for us to work out. And that's what we do. We design our retreat spaces and our experiences to bring all of these things up, to agitate those belief systems so that you get to actually see it for what it is and you're not stuck in the bottle. So that video going viral was 2 years ago. Now I feel, and I believe in my heart, we've reached a point where, and I see it everywhere. I have a lot of therapist friends. I have a lot of coach friends. Men are knocking on the door and they're like, what the fuck? So it seems like the right timing, but I know there's still a huge lack of understanding. And that's why I really enjoy conversations like this.
Yeah, I mean they're crucial. We're at that tipping point. Collectively we're at that tipping point. All system structures are breaking apart, and that means our own internal systems and structures, because everything's a mirror from the inside out. And so as our own internal sense of self is being brought into question and illuminated on the screen of our awareness, we get to choose in that moment, okay, what do I do with this? Do I continue to stuff it down, or do I actually begin to bring it into a space like this or to somewhere else where it's like admitting, right? One of the most vulnerable things we can do is to admit we need fucking help.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty vulnerable place for a man that's been told you're weak, if you cry, you're a pussy, all of these things by society. For a man to actually step up and say, you know what, I'm fucking struggling. I'm really going through it. And I can't hold this anymore. Because what happens when we try to hold, right? We're in constriction, we're in resistance, and we are literally holding all this energy in, which is everything manifests down to the physical from the energetic and emotional realms. So anything you're holding emotionally is only going to create the manifestation of dis-ease, as Sean mentioned before. Whereas then you don't have a choice, right? And then you're stuck in this position where now all of these things that have to be taken care of as a result of you being in this compromised position. And so we don't want to see it get there. And listen, the end of the day, this is not about Sean or I. This is not about us. This is about you. This is about you taking care of yourself so that you can show up as a better husband, father, leader, steward, provider, and feel satisfied, feel on purpose, live into your passion, fully begin to actualize your higher visions, and allow those to come to light after the shadows, the pain, the wounding has been cleared and dissolved and integrated back into the whole. Because to live from a closed heart for the rest of your life, to live in this defensive, protective state, it's only killing you, and my deepest prayer from a place of compassion and empathy for these men that are struggling in this way is like, man, brother, if you can see your light that is buried underneath all of this darkness that you've carried for so long, if you could only see just a glimpse of that, you would be a changed, transformed man, and you would walk in clarity. You would walk in confidence and be able to lead your life from this place of true power and not the control, domination, aggression, and all of the things that have ruled your behaviors for so fucking long. So,
yeah.
Again, we're not trying to appeal to every man. We know we're not going to. That's just not possible. And that's okay. I've accepted that. We've accepted that. That's fine. But I know there's a man that is watching this video right now, and perhaps it's you, that you're feeling some resonance with this. And if that's the case, then Sean and I, we have spaces, we have brotherhood, we have places in which you can come into and begin to really work through this stuff. And that's also part of this prayer and this intention.
Yeah, I want to speak to the control thing too, right? I think this is so important to know for men. There's an identity that you've held on to that is the idea of not having control equals death. It equals total destruction, right? So that part will do everything that it can to try to control everything in the story in your life. And life itself is not control. You have no control over what happens in life, right? But yet, when you were a child, that piece of control was like, oh, well, I can control this mask I put on and do the things that I think are going to get me love and acceptance. That's a form of control. So to let that go is a big process. That's why people, say the ego death, the dark night of the soul. So I'm highlighting this because I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding with it. Because Chris and I have both gone through this process many times with these different versions of death, of that part that wants to control everything. We know it very intimately. And when you go through that process, it's like all you really want to do, your heart's so open that you want to turn around and help other men that you can see are trying to hold on, and the suffering that is occurring because of that. And they're just getting dragged through the mud by life because they're not willing to let go of that and go into the unknown. This is the basis for all addiction. Addiction is compulsive control. It's, I am too afraid to let go of what I've known, and to humble myself, to be in a place of like, where is this going? What's going to happen? And without a foundation of trust, without a connection to life, to the earth, to your soul, it's very scary. And it's like, holy shit. So it's no small endeavor. This is why Carl Jung calls this the individuation process. This is finding out who you are without all of the masks. It's about finding out what you're here on this planet for. And if you try to ignore that, you will face severe consequences. I spent a year. That's a long time. Like in my car when I quit my job and I left my old life. It was a year of shame and hiding and failure. Like, oh, I'm such a failure. I tried to better myself and I fell flat on my face. But in that process, I found who I was. I found my purpose for being here. I hit those deep layers of like, oh, wow, this is me. And it keeps going. So there's a big humbling process that occurs. And we've seen the most badass, physically oriented men, right? Veterans, guys that have seen combat. They've seen the worst of humanity. They grab their gun and they go into battle. They've seen crazy shit. They can bench press 500 pounds. They can do all the physical things. And then you see them when they come into these kinds of spaces. Oh, the resistance. Oh, the fear. It's like, whoa, this guy who is like known for his bravery and is a badass on the outside, when it comes to the emotional stuff and coming into a space of vulnerability and where he's never done any of this stuff, it's remarkable when you see him turn into a little boy, because that's what this actually is. And I know if you're not versed in this and you haven't kind of dug in and looked for yourself, it's hard to grasp it. I totally understand that. But our invitation is to, hopefully you felt at some level these words and we're like, all right, interesting. Okay. The physical stuff, this playing sports, the fishing and hanging out with your boys and, going to the gym. We need that. We got to have that. That's a big part of the equation. But it's missing the whole other half, which is the emotional and spiritual and energetic component of it all. And we've been trained our whole life to just be in the physical. And we've ignored all the other things, which are actually way more than the physical. And so this is what our spaces are helping guys to understand and really experience for themselves.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. And it's just, it's once you move a little past that resistance, everything, it just opens up. And, who doesn't want to feel empowered? Who doesn't want to feel inspired? Who doesn't want to feel creatively lit up? Who doesn't want to feel passionate and on purpose? Like we as men are designed fully to be living into our dharma and our soul's mission and to be able to better this world, right? In whatever way and whatever gifts you've been given, because you have your own unique set of gifts. And not to just live this mediocre, complacent existence. And that's really important. And that's what's on the other side of this work, right? We have to go internal. We have to go inner. And yes, there is times in which it's important for us to be in ourselves and be alone. I take a lot of time in nature by myself to contemplate and to reflect and to
Yeah.
go within. But equally, we need each other. Men need men to heal. And that is a statement I will always stand by, because what I've seen, the profound transformations that I've seen within a men's space, is beyond any other space I've been a part of. And then from there, to come together with women, to come together in a co ed space where we can begin to share from this new place of consciousness. And that in itself is going to ultimately create the world that we want to see. But we need each other. And for centuries, for a millennia, we have gathered together in this way. And yet, over the past few hundred years since the Industrial Revolution, we have been so deeply conditioned out of that. Because what does that do? When we separate the men like this, it creates a disempowered society. So, can't you see the programs and conditions that have been intentionally distilled and placed into society to break people apart? Because this isn't new. This is shit that's been going on for so long. And this has been things that we've been gathering in circles and councils and tribes for so long. And we've just lost our way. And now it's time to find that tributary back together. Because when men are empowered in this way, we're unstoppable, in the sense that we can create a new paradigm, a new world, a new reality that reflects the goodness of our own heart, and that begins to create a new relationship with the planet, with women, with children, with this earth as a whole, and begin to fully live into who we came here to be as the leaders that we are. So
Yeah.
that's it. And so again, the invitation, any man watching this video, go beneath the video into the description, click on the link, join the Elemental Brotherhood. That's where we gather online. And then if you want to go deeper, we have retreats. You can come in and experience this for yourself firsthand. And we're just so excited. And the caliber of men that come into these experiences is just next level. I'm so grateful to be a part of this.
Yeah. It took going through a lot of shit to get to this place where, we're acting on the inspiration to help other men that are in the place that we were once in. And of course, our work continues in a very deep way, but, these are unprecedented times. And for that, we have to break the patterns and take unprecedented actions. And, I feel a lot of the projection is like, oh, you guys are just getting together and talking about your feelings. That's what women do. And to that, I want to say, is it healthy to share your feelings so they're not hiding in shame and staying stuck in your body and creating inflammation and creating different levels of psychosis? Yeah. But it's equally and even more powerful to pave a path forward, to get guys to come together and share ideas and talk about, like, hey, what are we going to do about these challenges we're seeing? How are we going to show up? How are we going to help out our communities and our families to go through this massive shift that we're in as this whole new paradigm starts to take form? How are we going to stand up to the oppression and some of the tyranny that's going on right now? How are we going to make this actually work? Like, that conversation comes on the other side of when we get out of our me ego survival bubble. We have to pop that, and that's a very real thing. And then on the other side of that, it's like, all right, now that we're in the embodiment of more of who we actually are and we're taking responsibility, it's like, all right, let's have a real conversation about how can we make this world better? How can we make the world better for our families, like I said, our communities? And the solutions come from the work that we do in these kinds of spaces. The solutions come from dealing with all the shit and all the layers that keep you in that small victim state, in the identity of you as your body instead of the soul of you, the divine aspect of you that's connected to all things. From that place, you start to ask the bigger questions. And if enough men are coming joining together in that energy, that's where the solutions are. That's where we can receive them. And that's the only way we're going to make this stuff better. Because if I'm a bully, if I'm, one of the rulers of the world controlling the narrative, I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep imposing shit and keep saying like, yeah, watch, they don't do anything. They never do anything. We'll like the Epstein stuff, like we'll pretend this guy killed himself and really he's still alive right now because we don't care. They don't do anything. They don't stand up. We'll push as far as we want to go. And to me, it's like that's playing the bigger role of consciousness being like, hey, when are you guys going to come into your power and say no to these systems that are testing you to not be in that slavery mindset anymore, and that passive mindset of like, no, I just got to worry about my little world and like whatever's happening out there, whatever. That has to go away now. We have to step into the bigger picture before it gets too late. And I don't say that in a dramatic way. I'm just saying it in a more real, practical. As a guy who floated spiritually out there for a while, like now that I'm back in here, it's like, all right, we got to do this or else we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I just wanted to speak to that, as we round out this conversation. And I want every guy that's watching this to know what's in you beyond those things, those limitations and the fear and the victimhood, is a guy who is walking very strongly in his purpose and in his gnosis of who he is. And that is really what's needed on our planet right now, is a man who's allowed himself to step fully into that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That is it. So, gentlemen, brothers, it's time. It's time. We have a space open. You might find other spaces that resonate. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you do the work, but do the work. That's what we're all here for. And that is really the true essence of what we want to, express and share today, is that, it's never too late. And even in this moment, you could be struggling down on your luck, feeling, bad about yourself, but it's never too late. So, our space is open, and there's many others out there. So appreciate you guys tuning in and being a part of this conversation. If this conversation impacted you on any level, aside from joining our spaces, please share it. Share this video with friends, with family. If there's women watching this video, share this with the men in your life. Whatever it is, get it out there, get the conversation circulating, and perhaps we'll receive some hate, and that's all right. I'm good with that. But I know there's a lot of good inevitable, but there's a lot of good brothers out there, and just really stoked to see what's happening and going to happen in the future. So appreciate you guys.